Ryan opened his eyes slowly. The first thing he saw was a dark ceiling lined with glowing blue panels that pulsed in a strange rhythm. His body ached as if he had been thrown into a wall. He tried to move his arms and realized cold metal cuffs locked his wrists to a chair. His heart raced as memory returned in broken pieces. He had been with his sisters Mara and Lyra on a small transport ship traveling between colonies when something huge had intercepted them. A ship that blotted out the stars. The last thing he remembered was a blinding light and the sound of alien voices. Now he was inside their vessel. He lifted his head and looked around. The chamber was round, with smooth walls that glimmered like polished stone. Strange markings ran across them, symbols he could not read. In front of him stood a tall figure covered in dark armor, its face hidden behind a mask shaped like a skull. Its eyes glowed faint red. Around the chamber were more armored beings, each holding weapons that curved like sickles yet glowed like fire. Then his eyes fell on what mattered most. Across the room, inside shimmering cages of energy, stood Mara and Lyra. His sisters. Mara, the older one, had always been calm and thoughtful. Her hands gripped the field as she stared at him, her face pale but her eyes steady. Lyra, younger and quick-tempered, slammed her fists against the barrier, shouting words he could not hear. Seeing them trapped filled Ryan with fear and fury all at once. The tall figure stepped closer. Its voice came through a deep translator, slow and heavy. Human. You stand before the Varnak. You are weak creatures who wander too far into our space. For your arrogance, you face a test. Ryan glared at the figure, his mouth dry. He wanted to demand answers, but his throat felt tight. The commander pointed a clawed finger toward the cages. You must choose. One sister lives. The other dies. Refuse, and both perish. Decide now, human. The words struck Ryan like a blade. His breath caught in his chest. He looked at Mara, then Lyra. Both stared back, their faces twisted by fear but also by determination. Mara shook her head slowly, trying to calm him. Lyra shouted again, her fists glowing as the field sparked under her strikes. The Varnak soldiers laughed, their harsh voices echoing across the chamber. To them, this was a game, a cruel amusement. They wanted to see the human spirit broken, to watch him tear himself apart with guilt. Ryan lowered his eyes for a moment. His mind spun in circles. How could anyone make such a choice? He had promised their parents he would always protect them. He had always been the one to fix things, the one to shield them. Now these monsters wanted him to betray that promise. The commander leaned closer. Choose now. Delay shows weakness. Weakness has only one end. Ryan lifted his head again. He forced himself to breathe deeply. His fear did not vanish, but he buried it under a layer of stubborn resolve. He remembered every story of humanity's survival. The times when humans faced disasters, wars, and impossible odds. His people were not known for giving up. They were known for holding on when no one else would. He stared at the commander and said in a steady voice, I will not choose. The chamber grew silent. Even his sisters stopped moving. The commander tilted his head, as if unsure he had heard correctly. What did you say, human? I said I will not choose, Ryan repeated. You can threaten me. You can hurt me. You can hurt us all. But you will not make me decide between them. The soldiers hissed, their glowing eyes narrowing. Some struck the floor with their weapons, sparks flying. The commander made a sound like a growl. You defy the Varnak. No human has ever spoken to us so. Ryan's voice grew stronger. Maybe no human has ever had the chance. But I am not breaking for you. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Mara pressed her hands tighter against the field, tears in her eyes. Lyra's lips curved into a fierce smile even as she trembled. Their brother had refused the impossible choice. That alone gave them strength. The commander raised his clawed hand. Then you will watch both die. The energy field around Lyra flickered. Sparks leapt from its surface. The soldiers lifted their weapons. Ryan's heart leapt into his throat. He pulled against his cuffs, metal biting into his skin. He could not let it happen. He would not. He remembered something from earlier when he had first awoken. The cuffs had small panels with glowing circuits. They were old, not new. The Varnak ship was massive, but even massive empires reused parts. He had already felt one panel loose when he had shifted his arm. He twisted his wrist hard, pressing against the weak joint. Pain shot through his hand, but he kept pushing. The panel cracked with a faint spark. He hid the movement with his body, his eyes never leaving the commander. The commander signaled again, and the field around Lyra dropped lower. The glow dimmed, and the weapon in the nearest soldier's hands began to hum. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. With one last sharp twist, the panel snapped free. The cuff around his wrist loosened. Ryan surged forward. His hand shot out, grabbing the soldier's weapon. Shock flashed across the alien's glowing eyes as Ryan wrenched it free and swung it upward in one desperate motion. A beam of light sliced through the air, striking the ceiling. The room exploded with noise. Alarms blared, and sparks rained down. Mara cried out. Lyra screamed his name. The soldiers rushed forward, weapons raised. Ryan barely understood how to hold the strange weapon, but instinct guided him. He slammed the butt of it into the face of the soldier beside him, then spun toward the control panel of the cages. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice filled with fury and fear. He pulled the trigger, and a bolt of burning light shot into the wall, leaving a deep scar. The soldiers froze for an instant, surprised by his boldness. Ryan turned toward his sisters. His free hand reached for the panel near Mara's cage. Sparks leapt as he struck it with the weapon's edge. The field flickered. Mara gasped as the energy dissolved, leaving her free. The commander roared in anger, his voice shaking the chamber. "Seize him!" More soldiers poured in through the doors. Ryan knew he had only seconds. He shoved Mara toward the panel of Lyra's cage. "Help me," he cried. Together, they slammed the weapon and their fists into the control unit. The field sputtered, sparks bursting outward. Lyra stumbled free with a wild cry. The three siblings stood together now, backs to one another, facing a room full of armed aliens. The soldiers advanced slowly, circling them. Ryan's chest rose and fell like a drum. He did not know how long he could fight, but he knew one thing with certainty. He would never let them take his sisters again. The chamber blazed with alarms. The Varnak commander raised his weapon, eyes burning like fire. Ryan lifted the alien rifle, his grip shaking but firm. Mara and Lyra stood on either side of him, their faces pale but fierce. For the first time since their capture, the siblings were together. And together, they would defy the impossible. The chamber was filled with noise. Alarms echoed through the walls, and red lights flashed above. The Varnak soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons as they formed a circle around Ryan, Mara, and Lyra. The siblings stood close together, pressed back to back. Ryan held the alien rifle in his hands, his palms sweaty but steady. His sisters were unarmed, yet their eyes burned with the same determination he carried. The Varnak commander raised his clawed hand to halt his soldiers. His voice boomed through the translator. You think this small defiance proves strength, human? It proves only foolishness. You cannot fight the Varnak. You cannot escape our ship. You will still choose, or you will watch both sisters die. The words shook through the chamber, heavy and cruel. Mara's breath caught in her chest, but she lifted her chin high. Lyra clenched her fists, her fiery temper rising. Ryan felt his heart race, but he stood tall. I already told you, Ryan said firmly. I will not choose. The commander tilted his head, the glowing eyes narrowing. Then you will break. Every creature breaks. He stepped closer. The soldiers pressed in tighter, weapons humming with deadly light. Mara's voice whispered near Ryan's shoulder. We can't win this fight, not here. We need to think. Ryan's mind raced. He studied the soldiers around them. Their armor was thick, but their movements were stiff. They relied on fear to control their enemies, not speed. He glanced at the walls. Panels of glowing symbols covered them. Some of those panels flickered, connected to the alarms. If he could strike the right one, maybe it would trigger something bigger. Before he could act, the commander barked a new order. Two soldiers stepped forward. They aimed their weapons directly at Lyra. Your refusal ends now. The younger sister will die first. Watch, human. Learn that defiance has a cost. Lyra gasped. Her eyes flicked to Ryan, but she did not cry. She stood tall even as the glowing barrels aimed at her chest. Ryan's stomach twisted. He raised the rifle higher, pointing it at the commander's chest. Touch her, and I swear I'll burn through you, Ryan shouted. His voice echoed across the chamber. The commander laughed, a hollow and terrible sound. You would strike the Varnak leader, you dare? I dare, Ryan said. His hands shook, but he did not lower the weapon. You wanted me to break. You wanted me to surrender. That is not what humans do. The soldiers hesitated. For the first time, the circle around them wavered. Ryan saw it. The aliens had not expected a human to fight back with such boldness. They had expected tears, begging, weakness. Instead, he stood unyielding. That hesitation gave him hope. Mara leaned closer to him and whispered, we need a way out. Keep their attention. Ryan nodded almost invisibly. Mara's sharp eyes darted around the chamber, scanning for anything they could use. Her gaze fixed on a tall console near the wall, glowing brighter than the others. She guessed it controlled more than just the cages. Lyra caught Mara's look and understood. She crouched low, as if preparing to spring. The soldiers noticed her movement and shifted uneasily. Ryan kept the commander's focus on him. You call us weak, Ryan said loudly. But weakness is what you fear most in yourselves. You think loyalty makes us fragile. But it makes us strong. You will never understand that. The commander snarled, his voice harsh. Strong, you are trapped on my ship, surrounded by my soldiers. You have no escape. Ryan's eyes burned into his. Maybe not yet. But I will not choose. And I will not stop fighting. At that moment, Mara shouted, now. Lyra leapt toward the console. Her fist struck the glowing surface. Sparks erupted as the panel shattered. The alarms screamed louder, and the floor trembled under their feet. The soldiers spun around, aiming their weapons at her. Ryan fired the alien rifle. A bolt of light blasted across the room, striking the floor between the soldiers and Lyra. The blast knocked them back, smoke rising from the cracked floor. Mara grabbed a fallen shard of metal from the broken panel and swung it like a blade, striking another soldier's arm. Chaos filled the chamber. The soldiers shouted in their guttural tongue. The commander roared and swung his clawed arm at Ryan, but Ryan ducked and slammed the butt of his rifle into the commander's chest. The armor giant staggered but did not fall. "Run!" Ryan shouted to his sisters. The three of them dashed toward the side door as the alarms howled. Lyra yanked the door panel open, sparks burning her fingers. The heavy door slid aside, and they threw themselves into the corridor. Behind them, the commander's roar shook the chamber. The corridor stretched long and narrow, lined with the same glowing symbols. Red warning lights pulsed along the ceiling. The siblings ran, their footsteps pounding. Mara breathed hard but kept pace. Lyra's face was fierce with determination. Ryan stayed in front, gripping the rifle tightly. "This way," Ryan said, spotting a branching passage. He turned sharply, guiding them into a darker tunnel. He had no map, no knowledge of the ship, but he trusted his instincts. The air here was cooler, the walls less polished. Service corridors, perhaps. They stopped briefly to catch their breath. Mara leaned against the wall, sweat on her face. "We bought ourselves time, but not much. They'll chase us." "They already are," Ryan said. He listened. Heavy footsteps echoed faintly from the main corridor behind them. The Varnuk were hunting. Lyra touched the console panel near the door. "I think I can lock this. Give me a second." Her fingers traced the glowing symbols. She had always been quick with machines, even if she lacked training. Sparks danced as she pressed two runes together. The panel hissed and the door sealed with a grinding sound. "That won't hold them forever," Mara warned. "It doesn't have to," Lyra replied. "Just long enough." Ryan looked at both of them. Fear still lingered in their eyes, but beneath it burned something stronger. Resolve. They had been forced into an impossible choice, yet they had chosen to fight instead. That was their strength. The corridor stretched deeper into the ship. Strange pipes lined the walls, humming with power. Ryan touched them briefly and felt heat. Energy conduits, he guessed. If they could follow them, maybe they would find an engine room or another critical system. Somewhere they could cause more damage or find a way to escape. As they walked cautiously, the ship shuddered. A deep vibration shook through the floor. Mara steadied herself. What was that? Could be the alarms triggering automatic defenses, Ryan said. Or maybe Lyra broke more than a panel. Lyra gave a small grin despite the danger. Good. Let them deal with their own mess. The footsteps behind them grew louder. The Varnuk had broken through the sealed door. Their guttural voices echoed down the tunnel. Ryan raised his rifle. "We keep moving. We stay together. No matter what, we don't let them separate us." Mara placed a hand on his arm. "We trust you, Ryan." Her words gave him strength. They pressed onward, deeper into the maze of corridors. The glowing pipes lit their path as the alarms wailed like a storm. Behind them, the Varnuk commander growled orders to his soldiers. His fury burned hotter than before. He had expected a broken human. Instead, he had found something else. Something dangerous. The chase had begun. The narrow corridor shook with every step the siblings took. Alarms pulsed like a heartbeat through the ship, painting the walls in red light. Behind them, the sound of heavy boots grew closer and closer. The Varnak soldiers were not far. Ryan led the way, gripping the alien rifle tightly. His arms ached, but he refused to lower it. Mara and Lyra followed close behind. The three of them moved quickly through twisting tunnels filled with pipes, wires, and glowing panels. Ryan guessed they were in a service section of the massive ship. That meant fewer guards here, but also fewer chances to escape. Lyra whispered as they ran, "We need a plan. Running forever won't work. They'll catch us." Ryan nodded. "I know. We need somewhere to stand, somewhere to fight." Mara pointed ahead. "Look there." The corridor opened into a wide chamber filled with humming machinery. Towers of pipes rose to the ceiling, and giant cylinders pulsed with light. Steam hissed from vents, and sparks flickered where panels cracked from the alarms. The air was hot and damp. "It looks like an engine room," Mara said. Ryan scanned the chamber. There were consoles, vents, and shadows where they could hide. He felt hope stir inside him. This might give us a chance. The three rushed inside and crouched behind a row of pipes. They listened. The stomping of boots echoed closer. The Varnak were coming. Ryan checked the rifle. Its power meter glowed faintly, half drained. He clenched his jaw. He had to use it wisely. "Listen," he whispered. "They think we are weak. They think we are just prey. But we know better. We don't let them break us. We fight back. We make them regret ever thinking humans are easy." Mara squeezed his shoulder. "Together. Always together," Lyra added. The sound of doors sliding open filled the room. Soldiers entered, their glowing eyes scanning the shadows. Their weapons hummed with deadly light. At least 10 of them spread out, searching the machinery. The siblings held their breath. Ryan raised the rifle slowly, aiming at a steam vent above one soldier. He squeezed the trigger. A bolt of energy struck the vent, and steam exploded outward. The soldier roared in surprise, blinded by the blast. Ryan shouted, "Now!" The siblings burst from hiding. Lyra grabbed a loose pipe from the floor and swung it at another soldier's arm. The alien dropped his weapon with a hiss of pain. Mara seized the weapon and fired at the nearest console. Sparks burst across the room, filling the air with smoke. The chamber erupted into chaos. Soldiers shouted in their guttural tongue, firing blindly through the steam. Ryan blasted at their legs, forcing them back. Mara ducked behind a pillar, firing bursts to cover her siblings. Lyra darted between machines, striking soldiers with quick, reckless moves. The Varnak had expected terrified humans. Instead, they found defiant fighters. The commander's voice echoed from the hall. "Do not let them escape. Crush them." The soldiers pressed harder. Energy beams scorched the walls and pipes. The room shook from explosions. Ryan's rifle grew hot in his hands. He fired until the power meter blinked low. He cursed under his breath but did not stop. Every second they survived was another second stolen from their enemies. Mara shouted, "Over there." She pointed to a tall console glowing brighter than the rest. It pulsed with light, feeding into the giant cylinders. It must control the engines, Ryan realized. If we hit it hard enough, we might cripple the ship. Lyra grinned through sweat and smoke. "Let's make them remember us." The three of them pushed forward together. Ryan blasted at the soldiers blocking their way. Mara fired the captured weapon with sharp aim, forcing them back. Lyra swung her pipe like a spear, knocking one soldier into a wall. They reached the console as alarms screamed louder. Ryan raised the rifle and fired point blank. The blast tore into the machine. Sparks erupted, and the floor shook violently. Lights flickered across the chamber. The ship groaned as if in pain. The soldiers froze in shock. Smoke filled the air. Then the commander entered, towering over them, his armored body glowing with fury. He carried a long blade of crackling energy, humming with deadly power. "You dare damage the Varnak ship," he roared. His eyes burned like fire. Ryan raised the rifle, but its power meter was empty. The weapon hummed weakly and died. His heart sank. He had nothing left but his hands. Still, he stood tall in front of his sisters. "We dare," he said firmly. "And we are not finished." The commander charged. His blade slashed downward, sparks flying as it struck the metal floor where Ryan had stood. Ryan rolled aside, grabbing a fallen weapon from a soldier. It was heavy and strange, but he lifted it anyway. The commander swung again, forcing Ryan back. Mara fired at him, but the blasts bounced off his armor. Lyra struck his leg with the pipe, but he barely staggered. The alien was stronger and faster than all of them. Yet Ryan did not give up. He dodged, blocked, and swung with every ounce of strength. He remembered every lesson of endurance his people had ever lived through. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they were stubborn, and stubbornness was power. The battle raged across the chamber. Pipes burst, steam roared, and alarms blared. The commander slashed at Ryan again, but this time Mara threw herself against his arm, pushing the blade aside. Lyra darted in and slammed the pipe against his knee joint. The commander stumbled for the first time. Ryan seized the moment. He lifted the alien weapon and struck the commander across the mask. Sparks burst, and the commander roared in rage. He swung wildly, forcing them back. "Retreat!" Mara cried. "We cannot beat him here." Ryan nodded, panting. They turned and dashed toward a side passage. The commander roared behind them, his soldiers following. The siblings ran through smoke and fire, their lungs burning, their hearts pounding. They burst into another corridor, this one wider and brighter. Windows lined one wall, showing the endless black of space outside. Stars glimmered beyond, cold and distant. For a moment, the sight gave them strength. Freedom was still out there. Ryan stopped at a panel near the window. He pressed buttons at random, searching for a door release. To his shock, the panel hissed open to reveal a maintenance hatch leading to narrow tubes. Inside, he ordered. "Go." Mara climbed in first, then Lyra. Ryan followed last, sealing the hatch behind them. The tubes were cramped and dark, filled with the hum of energy. They crawled forward, their breaths loud in the silence. Behind them, faint thuds echoed. The Varnak were still searching. They crawled until the tube split into two paths. Ryan paused, unsure. Mara touched his shoulder. "We cannot keep running forever. We need a real plan." "I know," Ryan said. He took a deep breath. "We cannot fight them head on. But we can outthink them. We need to find a hangar. If we can steal a ship, we can escape." Lyra's eyes lit up. "Yes. They will expect us to hide, not to steal a ship from under their noses." Mara nodded. "It is dangerous. But it is the only way." Ryan looked at both of them. Sweat covered their faces, Dirt streaked their arms, but their eyes burned bright. He felt pride swell inside him. They were not broken. They were stronger than ever. He smiled faintly. Then we aim for the hangar. Together. The siblings crawled deeper into the tubes, moving with quiet determination. Above them, the ship groaned with alarms and fire. The Varnuk believed they had cornered weak creatures. But instead, they had lit a spark. A spark of rebellion that would only grow brighter. The air inside the maintenance tubes was hot and thin. Every breath burned in their lungs as Ryan, Mara, and Lyra crawled forward on hands and knees. The hum of energy filled the narrow space, pressing against their ears like a constant warning. Sweat ran down their faces, and their arms shook with exhaustion. Yet they did not stop. The Varnuk were searching, and the siblings knew if they paused for too long, they would be found. Ryan led the way, his eyes fixed on the glowing lines running along the tubes. He tried to read them like a map. He had worked with circuits and machinery back on Earth, though nothing close to this alien technology. Still, his instincts told him that following the thicker energy conduits might lead them closer to the ship's power centers, and perhaps the hangar. Behind him, Mara crawled with quiet determination, her breath steady despite the strain. Lyra followed last, muttering under her breath, restless but focused. After what felt like hours, they reached a junction where the tube split in 3 directions. The air was cooler here, and faint vibrations shook the walls. Ryan placed his ear against the metal. He could hear the low rumble of engines far below, but to the left came a different sound, a hollow echo that reminded him of wide spaces. The hangar, Ryan whispered. It has to be. Mara frowned. If it is the hangar, it will be guarded. It will, Ryan admitted. But it is our only chance. Lyra's lips curved into a small grin. Then let's make them regret building a hangar so close to their tubes. They crawled left, the metal groaning beneath their weight. Soon the tube sloped downward and widened slightly. A faint light glowed ahead. Ryan slowed, signaling his sisters to stay quiet. He reached the end of the tube and pressed his face to the grate covering it. Beyond the grate stretched a massive hangar bay. Rows of sleek alien craft stood on glowing platforms. Cranes and machines moved slowly across the floor. Soldiers marched in groups, their glowing eyes scanning the area. At the far end, a giant force field gate opened into space, shimmering like liquid glass. Ryan's chest tightened. Freedom was right there, but between them and that gate lay an army. He pulled back from the grate. It is the hangar, he whispered. There are ships, but too many guards. Mara's eyes were sharp. If we rush in blindly, we will be caught in seconds. We do not rush, Ryan said. We use what they do not expect. Lyra leaned close. And what is that? Ryan's eyes burned with quiet fire. That humans never give up. We turn every weakness into strength. He studied the hangar again, searching for anything they could use. Then he noticed it. Along one wall, stacked near a row of crates, were fuel canisters glowing with faint blue light. If those were hit, they would erupt. Ryan smiled faintly. We can create a distraction. They worked quickly. Ryan pulled at the grate, straining until it bent outward. The metal screeched, but the sound was lost in the hangar's noise. He slipped out first, crouching low behind a crate. Mara followed carefully, and Lyra dropped down beside them with a grin. Now what? Mara whispered. Ryan pointed at the canisters. We make them believe something bigger is happening. While they deal with it, we take a ship. Lyra's eyes sparkled. I like this plan. They crept along the shadows, moving from crate to crate. Soldiers passed nearby, their heavy boots thudding on the floor, but the siblings stayed low and silent. Ryan's heart pounded with every step. One mistake, and it would be over. At last, they reached the canisters. Ryan checked the alien rifle he carried. Its power meter was almost empty, but perhaps it had enough for one more shot. He aimed carefully. "Get ready to run," he whispered. He fired. The bolt struck the nearest canister, and for a second nothing happened. Then the canister erupted in a blinding flash of blue fire. The explosion tore across the hangar, sending crates flying and soldiers stumbling. Alarms screamed as smoke billowed upward. "Now!" Ryan shouted. The siblings sprinted across the hangar floor. Soldiers shouted, confused and panicked by the explosion. Some ran toward the fire, while others fired blindly into the smoke. Mara, Lyra, and Ryan weaved between shadows, their lungs burning as they ran. They reached a small shuttle perched on a glowing platform. Its sleek black surface shimmered under the lights. Ryan slammed his hand against the hatch panel. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the hatch hissed open, and they scrambled inside. The interior was strange but compact. Seats lined the walls, and the controls glowed with alien runes. Ryan slid into the pilot's seat, his hands hovering over the unfamiliar symbols. Mara strapped into a seat beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the controls. Lyra paced at the back, peering out the hatch. "They see us," she shouted. "Hurry." Soldiers were racing through the smoke, weapons raised. Beams of energy struck the shuttle's hull, making it shudder. Ryan took a deep breath. "Come on, think. Machines are machines. They all follow logic." His fingers moved across the panel, pressing runes that glowed brightest. The ship hummed beneath them. Lights flickered, and the engines roared to life. The shuttle lifted from the platform, its wings spreading wide. Soldiers fired wildly, but the ship's shields flared, absorbing the blasts. Mara gripped her seat. "Ryan, the gate." The massive hangar gate shimmered ahead, glowing like liquid silver. Beyond it stretched the endless black of space. Ryan pushed the controls forward. The shuttle surged across the hangar, engines blazing. Soldiers scrambled to block them, but the shuttle barreled onward like a comet. The commander appeared on the platform below, his glowing blade raised high. His voice boomed, filled with fury. "You cannot escape the Varnak. You are nothing but prey." Ryan's eyes burned as he stared at the gate. "We are not prey. We are human." The shuttle slammed into the force field gate. For a heartbeat, it held like glass. Then it rippled, parting open as the ship burst through. The siblings were thrown against their seats as the shuttle shot into open space. Stars exploded across the window, endless and bright. Mara gasped in awe. Lyra laughed breathlessly, her voice wild with relief. Ryan gripped the controls, his heart racing. They had done it. Against all odds, they had escaped the hangar. But their victory was not complete. Alarms blared inside the shuttle. Mara's eyes darted to the display. "They are chasing us. Look." Through the rear window, sleek Varnak fighters poured out of the hangar like a swarm of predators. Their engines glowed red as they sped after the shuttle. Lyra's smile faded. "We cannot outfly all of them." Ryan tightened his grip on the controls. "Then we do not outrun them. We outthink them." The shuttle rocked as the first blast struck their shields. Sparks flew across the cockpit. Mara clung to her seat, shouting, "Shields are weakening." Ryan scanned the controls. He saw a cluster of runes glowing faint blue. His instincts told him they controlled auxiliary systems. He pressed them, and the shuttle's engines roared louder. The ship jerked forward, speed increasing. The fighters followed, their blasts slicing past the shuttle. Ryan steered hard, weaving between asteroid fragments scattered in the dark. The shuttle groaned as it twisted and turned, but the fighters had trouble keeping up. One crashed into a rock, bursting in flames. "Good flying!" Lyra cheered, gripping the back of his chair. But 3 more fighters closed in, their weapons charging. Ryan's mind raced. He saw another cluster of runes, glowing green this time. He pressed them, and the shuttle's wings folded inward. The ship spun sharply, rolling between 2 fighters. Their blasts struck each other instead, erupting in a fiery explosion. The last fighter pressed closer. Mara pointed at the sensors. "It is locking onto us." Ryan saw a final rune, glowing red. He pressed it. The shuttle shuddered, and a burst of energy fired from its rear. A flare of light blinded the fighter. It swerved too late and crashed into another asteroid. Silence filled the cockpit, broken only by their ragged breathing. The stars stretched before them, endless and free. The fighters were gone. The Varnak ship was a fading shadow behind them. For the first time since their capture, the siblings allowed themselves to breathe fully. Mara leaned back, her eyes closing in relief. Lyra dropped into a seat, laughing weakly. Ryan kept his hands on the controls, his heart still racing, but a faint smile touched his lips. They had done the impossible. They had escaped the Varnak warship. Yet deep inside, Ryan knew it was not over. The Varnak would not forget this insult. They would hunt them across the stars. But it did not matter. He had his sisters with him. They had defied the impossible once, and they would do it again if they had to. Together, they had proven what it meant to be human. The shuttle drifted through the endless dark, its hull still scarred from the battle in the hangar. Stars stretched out like silver dust, beautiful but cold. Ryan sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the glowing controls. Behind him, Mara and Lyra sat close together, silent but alive. They had escaped. Yet none of them could rest. The displays on the control panel flickered with warnings. The shuttle was fast, but it was not built for long journeys. Its power was draining, and the oxygen supply would not last forever. Ryan knew they had traded one danger for another. They were free of the Varnak ship, but lost in space with no safe harbor in sight. Lyra broke the silence first. "So we escaped, but where do we go now?" Ryan stared at the stars. "We need to find a planet or a station. Something with resources. Otherwise, this ship will fail." Mara leaned forward, pointing at the display. "There is a faint signal here. It is weak, but it repeats. Maybe a beacon." Ryan adjusted the sensors. A faint pulse appeared on the screen, rhythmic and constant. It came from a small system not far away. His heart lifted slightly. Yes. A beacon. That means someone placed it there. Maybe survivors. Maybe even humans. Without hesitation, he steered the shuttle toward the signal. Hours passed. The siblings took turns watching the stars, speaking little. Each of them felt the weight of what had happened. Ryan thought of Earth, of the life they once had before the Varnak tore it away. Mara sharpened her focus, her eyes always alert, always searching for threats. Lyra tapped her fingers restlessly, her fire never dimmed, even in the silence. Finally, the shuttle approached the source of the beacon. A small moon circled a dead planet, its surface cracked and barren. Orbiting the moon was a station, old and broken, its lights faint but still alive. The beacon pulsed from its core. "It is half dead," Mara said, her tone cautious. "It is still hope," Ryan answered. He guided the shuttle closer. The station's docking bay doors opened slowly, as if surprised to receive visitors. The shuttle slipped inside, landing on a rusted platform. The engines powered down, leaving only silence. The siblings stepped out, weapons ready. The air inside was thin but breathable. The station's halls were dark, filled with the hum of failing machines. As they moved deeper, they saw faded signs of life, old human markings on the walls, empty crates, worn tools. This place had once belonged to humans. Then they reached the main chamber. At the center stood a massive console glowing faint blue. And before it, a figure waited. Tall, armored, and unmistakable. The commander of the Varnuk. His blade gleamed in his hand, his eyes burning with cold fire. Ryan froze. Mara and Lyra raised their weapons, but the commander did not strike. His voice filled the chamber like thunder. "You escaped the warship. Few ever have. But your victory ends here. One of you must die. The others may live. Choose, human." The words struck like lightning. Ryan's breath caught. The same cruel choice again. It was as if the universe demanded his heart be torn apart twice. Lyra's voice shook with anger. "We will not play your game." The commander's eyes glowed brighter. "Defiance is meaningless. I can end all three of you now. But I offer one chance. Choose one sister, human, or watch both fall." Ryan's mind burned. Memories flooded him, the laughter of his sisters, their courage in the face of fear, their refusal to ever give up. How could he choose? How could he sacrifice one for the other? His heart screamed in silence. Mara stepped forward, calm and steady. "If one must fall, let it be me. Ryan, protect Lyra. She has the fire to carry on." "No!" Lyra cried, pushing forward. "If someone must fall, it will be me. Ryan, save Mara. She has the strength to lead." Ryan's chest ached. Both were willing to die for the other. Both loved him enough to bear the weight. Tears burned his eyes, but his hands clenched with fury. He looked at the commander, his voice low but fierce. "You do not understand us. You think we will break. But we are human. And humans never choose between those they love. We fight for all, or we fight until we fall." The commander tilted his head, studying him like a puzzle. His blade hummed with energy. "Then you choose death." Ryan raised his weapon, his voice steady. "I choose humanity." Mara and Lyra stood beside him, their weapons raised too. 3 humans against a towering alien warlord. The air trembled with tension. The commander roared and charged, his blade cutting arcs of light. The siblings moved as one. Mara deflected his strikes with bursts of energy fire. Lyra darted behind him, her shots forcing him to turn. Ryan aimed carefully, waiting for his moment. The battle shook the chamber. Sparks flew as the commander's blade carved through metal. The siblings fought with everything they had, their hearts beating as one. The commander struck Mara's weapon, shattering it, but she leapt aside, drawing him away from Ryan. Lyra's blast grazed his armor, making him stumble. Then Ryan saw his chance. As the commander raised his blade to strike Lyra, Ryan fired directly at the console behind him. The shot struck deep, and the console exploded in a blinding flash. Energy surged through the chamber, flooding the air with raw power. The commander roared, his blade faltering as sparks danced across his armor. Ryan shouted, "Now!" Mara and Lyra fired together. Their blasts struck the commander squarely in the chest. The explosion threw him backward, his body crashing against the wall. His blade fell, its glow fading. Silence followed. The great warlord lay still, defeated. The siblings stood together, breathing hard, their weapons shaking in their hands. They had done the impossible again. Not by choosing one over the other, but by standing as one. Ryan lowered his weapon slowly. He looked at Mara and Lyra, his voice soft. "I could never choose between you. You are both my heart. Together, we are strong. Together, we are human." Mara placed her hand on his shoulder. "You chose well, brother. You chose us all." Lyra smiled through tears. "And you showed him what humans really are." They gathered what supplies they could from the station. The beacon, damaged by the battle, now sent out a new signal, one strong enough to be heard across the stars. A call not of surrender, but of defiance. A message that humanity still lived, and would never bow. As they prepared to leave, Ryan looked out at the stars. The Varnuk would come again. Others would test them, demand their choices, seek to break them. But now he knew the truth. Humanity was more than prey, more than weak. Humanity was family, love, and the will to stand together even when the universe demanded they fall apart. He turned to his sisters, a faint smile on his face. "We will face whatever comes. Not as one, not as two, but as three. Always." The shuttle rose from the broken station, carrying them into the unknown. Ahead stretched danger and darkness, but also hope. They had made the impossible choice not to sacrifice, but to fight for all. And in that choice, they carried the heart of humanity into the stars.